Hey everybody. So hope you had a great trading day. So let's just get right into it. So in today's video, what we're going to wind up doing is we're going to go through about 20 names that I was asked about. Some of these ran up pretty good today and then they completely fell off. Others look like they're going to push higher. You know, I get a lot of requests for what am I looking at. So at the end of this video, I'm going to start doing that. So I'm going to just give you two that most likely are going to be on my radar tomorrow, and I would suggest that you look at them as well. But let me just get through some of the requests that I got today and some of the actionable things that look like they're going to happen coming down the pike here. So we're just going to jump right into it. AMC, this is a rejection, okay? So just as you rejected here, right, and you have this candlestick, okay, and you have this other wick right here, and what happens with these? We know that this is price rejection from watching these videos, right? And at the end of this video, I will link that video as well to it so that if you haven't watched this candlestick video by now, you need to watch it. But what you're seeing is you're seeing clear rejection still up here, right? And how do we see that? Well, here's your range. And look, you're unable to fix it. You're unable to get above that. So that is resistance. Look how it fits over here, right? So you can see your level. Now this pattern, for those that aren't aware, just give it to you really quickly, that's a bearish engulfing pattern, okay? So a bearish engulfing pattern, the reason that that's important is because that is the beginning of a reversal. That is not the full reversal. That is the beginning of a reversal. And that's at the top of this flag. So what you would have to do is understand that, and then you need this to confirm before you even think of going along this. So now we've gone from where I thought we'd have the ability to go to 67. I'm not feeling that right now. I'm feeling that you need to watch this and hold, or we're going to come back down here and go through the 8 and test this 4187. So be really careful here. This was pretty much the antithesis of what you wanted to have happen. Amazon, we had a trade on, and we did very well with the trade. We actually, on the options, I think in 3 days, we're up like 100%. So September 17th, 3400s for those that asked. So I mean, we're out of them now. But the reason I bring that up is you need to know where you're at on a position at all times, right? So when we were running up today, you're looking here and you're watching it ride this line. See how you can watch it hit that line? See how you rejected? So you opened here, flipped. As soon as you crossed here, for those that are in the community, they'll see when I came out and said, hey, close it, lock it in. Okay, so let's just view this so you can understand this by looking at multiple time frames, which I would strongly recommend that you look at multiple time frames. So you can see here how these fib levels, 15 minutes, coincide with that wedge line, right? That's not a coincidence. Okay, so, I mean, it's all, I don't want to get all into it, but it's basic math. How these things line up. So see this break right here? So right there, you knew that you had an issue. Now here, okay? So for me, I try to get up, I fail. I try to get up over that line again, I fail. This bar, and we just went through this pattern, and I'm going to show you this because you can see this pattern on every single position, on every single time frame, and you can use this anywhere. See this flip? What's that? A bearish engulfing. Where did it happen? Right on resistance. Well, that's not good, right? We didn't really have one of those before then, did we? Not really, no. We had the inverse kind of here, but not really because it's more of a hammer. But, well, it sure happened here. Closed at the low, gapped right below it. That was it. Boom. Out of the position. And because I am aware of this, right, and been doing this for a long time, I can spot them pretty fast. But the more repetition you have, you can do it as well. It's not rocket science. Anybody can do this after a while. So and it does add value, but what that does do is from 18, I don't have to wait for 89 before I think my short-term top's in. Well, on an option that's 3,400 with a delta of roughly 1 at this point because we're so in the money, right? So you're basically looking between 17 to, just say that you were going to stop out here, another 11. So you're roughly looking at $30 that you saved by understanding that. So again, I would strongly recommend that you watch that video. I think you'll see real value in it, and I'll link it in here. But so get back to your question. I was asked, what do you do now with it? To me, the trade's over. To me, the trade's busted. You're going to have light volume all week. for the rest of the week now due to Labor Day. And I want to get into the IWM again and what's going on there because it's really important. So we're going to address it very quickly. I'll just do that in alphabetical order. But you need to pay attention to things like this. Just like with the people that wanted to look at Netflix today, you need to pay attention to where that resistance is and what happened today. So there's a reason why you wait for things to break key levels and confirm. And that doesn't even always mean that you're right, but it increases your probability. And the more you can increase your probability, the more you can manage your money and control your risk and profit from it. So what do you do now? There's nothing to do here. This trade's over, in my opinion. You need to reverse and go over this before you even consider buying it. So now you need to close over 330, in my opinion. A bullish engulfing would get me there. So we'll see if that happens. BBIG. So this was the level that we talked about that it needed to clear today. And you can see exactly where we closed. And after hours, what are we doing? Well, let's go here and take a look at this so you can see. After hours, you're selling down, right? So this is telling you this is an issue. So just keep that in mind. You're having a real trouble with this 946 level and staying above it. So until that confirms, that's fine. But you are wedged in here. If you break 834 and you're not out, you're going to have a problem. This is acting like it's getting support, though. So I do think that you could still see this perform. Let's look at this. Okay, this is not over. People that understand these patterns are fully aware of these bars and the significance of these bars, right? And how they control the range. And you can see that. You can see how that controls the range. And that's the most dominant range. But then the next, obviously, would be the next point. And you can see pretty clearly here how that controls the range, right? So you really didn't close out of that bar. You had an inside bar, then it determined which way it was going to go. Not the way you wanted, right? And you should be able to see this, but I'll just draw it so that you can use this anywhere. So you have your rising wedge. You snap your rising wedge on the hourly. That's it. That's enough. And then you're going to start testing this level. And that's what happened. So the question is now, for those that are in this, what do you do with it? Well, you're wedged in between 834 and 946. It could run. They could come out with the secondary. Anything could happen. So you're really just speculating at this point. So you're going to have to just play it by ear and see how it does. To me, I think you need to just be careful here. And if it breaks that 834, maybe just call it a day. You know, I wouldn't play with it. Hopefully it doesn't come to that, and hopefully you don't get there. So, but just keep that in mind. In regards to crowd, I just want to cover this. So this did pretty much, it's kind of funny. This was the level I showed yesterday where these can go to because of the options, right? The option markets and how they can control the range. And here we are again, you know, after yesterday's video, and we just happened to close right there. I haven't even moved these yet. It's funny. Anyway, to get back to it. So from here, what you're going to see is you're going to need to hold this little close. But this is a really nasty bar. And let's get into this bar. Let's get rid of these horizontal lines now. And let's get into this bar. So here's my upper trend line. We broke it, ran over it, reversed, sold, and came back down and closed at the low. So for those that understand this pattern, right, we can almost guarantee one thing just by looking at it, right, that we're above the Bollinger Bands. Right? And then you can see how you were above the Bollinger Bands here. And then you snapped back into it, just like that Bollinger Band video that we did. So that's linked in the same playlist as the candlestick video. But, you know, just watch that that's a little trade tip. And that's what happens. If you pop out and then pop fully back in, chances are you're probably going to regress. That regression takes you to about 257. So just keep that in mind. You know, usually you revert to a mean over time. You usually do test the mean. See, you break up here, then you revert to the mean. Breaks up here, stays in, reverts to the mean. Again, mean, right? You can just see it. Breaks, reverts to the mean. Flips, reverts to the mean. So that's why people look at the 21-day moving average. That for Bollinger Bands, it's the 20, but I just use 21. It's like splitting hairs. So the question is, what do you do now with it? You should not be in this. This clearly has topped. Anything could always happen, but to me, this is topped. You closed at the low of the day. You went through the open. This is complete and utter rejection, and you're just sitting here holding on to a dream. Hope is not a strategy. Okay, so that's going to break most likely, and you're probably heading to here. Just FYI. You could probably, if you take out a lower low tomorrow and you go out next week, you could probably short it or buy puts. There's probably 10 points there. So DLO, everybody was pretty excited today and buying it and talking about how it was running up. And this is what we're left with. So what we're left with is a stock that once again did what? Did not close over. We kind of closed over 68.71, but did we really? Kind of. I mean, a little bit, but you're doing better after hours, but I don't know how real that is. And here you are, once again, you can't close over 70. You did get over 70, but look at that wick. And what does this wick tell us? This wick just tells us very simply what? Price rejection over and over again. So when you see this type of price rejection, you just need to stay, right? I mean, you can see that. I'm zooming in on purpose. But you can see you're completely rejected. Maybe you're up a little bit, but is that enough to get excited about? The volume? I get it if you bought it here and you have your trade and you're up $3, but for those that bought the breakout, you can't stay with it. So ETHE, so I want to go through this one. This has a lot of potential, and it's one that we've been reviewing on and off for some time, but let me just zoom in on this part of it for a second, and then I'm going to go to a monthly. So this was your wedge line. You broke that. This was a support line that you were having a major, major issue with, and it's more prevalent. This is the, we're going to call it an ETF, but this is the ETF for the Ethereum, right? So this is what's been going on, and that's where that line is. And then you can see what it's done today and then how it's acted, right? You can see how we've moved up and finally broke out. I think you're up like 10% on that today. So now the question is, where is this going? I think this is going to wind up going a lot higher, frankly. This is a pretty substantial breakout. And the other thing I would point out too is, see how your volume was, you dried up all your volume right here? Your volume's not dried up here. As a matter of fact, it's reversing. It's actually increasing. So I would expect that we're going to be to this fairly quickly, which means that Ethereum's going to get there. And let me just show you this. Okay, so for me, these are key levels. This is just the monthly on this level. Okay, that was your monthly open. That means that you're now in these wicks, right? So now you're above this and you're going. Doesn't mean you're going to stay here. The month just began, but this is where you're at right now. Okay, so that's pretty significant. All I have to do now is work up the wicks. And the first wick that you're going to have to deal with is that one. Okay, after that, you're heading to here. Okay, I mean, that's it. Get through this. There's no resistance except this from the beginning when it started. So just keep that in mind. It's definitely of interest. I can see why you're interested in that, and I would be interested in it too. It's much better than the GDLC we're about to go over. So in my opinion, you have more upside there. And we can get into what's in GDLC as well, just so people know that. So the FIGS trade I got asked a lot about, and now here you are with 42 and 65. You opened where? Right on the wedge line. The open was the low, which is how we like it. The high was the close. I mean, you can't get more bullish than a bar that does that. It's just not possible. Flip that, and now we're probably heading to this 46. So there's a couple points here, nothing to get too crazy about. I would have liked to have seen more volume, but Labor Day weekend is Labor Day weekend. So it is what it is. So I want to just talk about this today because a bunch of people in the community were either messaging me or talking about it in one of our rooms. And I just want to discuss this. So the time to buy this was this break. Okay. If you wanted to play it, this was your opportunity, this 53 level, right? After that, and now you're playing these levels, you have so much more risk, and you have to realize that your first real support level is 54. So when you're at 64 and you're chasing something like this and it goes to 73, you have an issue, right? Because when that comes down, it's going to come down fast. And why does it come down fast? Well, for one, you have weak hands, right? Because people up here, they're down in it. So they're going to sell faster and just cover their losses and move on. But when you start coming in like this is setting you up for a reversal. Now, the reason I like just the Ethereum straight now versus this is because it's a pure play. This you're going to have to deal with. I believe it's Bitcoin is the largest, Ethereum is second, and then Cardano is third. And I think they make up about 80% of this. So you're going to have to watch that, because if one of those gets hit and the other goes up, you're not going to get anything out of it. And right now, this is telling you that one of those three may be having an issue, and it's certainly not Ethereum. So let's go through the IWM, because we touched base on this yesterday, because I think today's development's important. And I really want to go through that. And then at the end of this, I am going to go through two names that I really want people to focus on tomorrow. So let's just focus on this for a minute. And they're going to be out of alphabetical order, but that's okay. So here's your line. What weren't you able to close above for how long? To here? So for all of July and August, you were unable to do this, and you just did it. And you did it during Labor Day weekend. And I want to point this out again, because I pointed it out yesterday. See this wick? It's all price rejection. See this wick? We opened, came down, went up through it. Now I have a hammer here. Look at this. Now I have a hammer at the top of this range. So I have a small flag that I broke out and formed a hammer. So that's why you saw your DDD go up today. You saw some of the other small caps. I'm going to go through one of the small caps that took out an all-time high today in a minute. And I just want to clear this up. Like, this is setting up to go. You know, people are talking about, and believe me, I'm the biggest like tech guy as far as like buying tech stocks. I love them because I love the growth. But here, look at this. Okay. One of these is overextended and starting to look tired. Okay. And that's the Qs. Now, what happened today on the Qs? Looks like they're telling us we're down about 12 basis points. What happened on IWM today? Okay. We're up 27 basis points. What's going on? According to this one piece of data I'm looking at, we're actually up 66 basis points. This must be a weird close. But what I'm getting at is you're seeing rotation, and rotation's been what's keeping this market alive. And we're seeing it. We're starting to see the beginning of it. And I'm just going to say that again. We're seeing the beginning of it in small caps. This is not, it could come up here and fail again. Absolutely. But we're seeing the beginning of signs that we have not seen all year long. I mean, maybe you saw some of it here early on off the rip, but since this, you've not seen what this can do. You've not had a year base that's just been sitting here waiting. So I understand people are looking at these, but you're looking at, that's overextended. I mean, I don't, again, I love it, but it's overextended. This is not overextended. And if you remember in the beginning of the year, this is the one that was overextended, not the NASDAQ. So, you know, I think you're going to see money flow into this, and I would start focusing on your small cap names. So JAX I kept getting asked about, so I figured I'd cover it. This is exactly why you want to see a close. Very clean, very easy to understand now, right? So open, goes through it, everybody gets all excited, comes back down, closes right here. So technically someone's going to call this a bearish engulfing. It's not to me because the bodies don't encompass one another, but if it works for you, it works for you. You're sitting right on this wedge line. If you break a lower low tomorrow, you're probably going through the 8 and at least to the 21, which is not that bad. It's 30, it's what, 50 cents we'll call it. You know, then you're going to come here. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but it's not the breakout that you're looking for. And, you know, there's a pattern here that I refer to as devil horns because of these red wicks. And this kind of looks like a little bit of a devil face, but maybe that's just me. So, you know, you're seeing a failed cup, right? But when you have these wicks like this, that's usually putting in a top. Okay, it's very rare that that's not a top. You know, usually you'll have some linger over it, but if you're at the same level and you have like two wicks like this, that's usually a top. So I would just tell you to be really careful there. So Lucid Group, I just want to cover this because I talked about it earlier today. So what you had today was a classic undergap where you just undergapped and then the people that were short decided to cover. I don't really view, and I just want to cover this, I don't really view today's action as bullish at all. You know, a matter of fact, people that wanted to short it, I was explaining to them how and where I would short it, and I'll walk through it now as well, so that you can understand this. So this was pretty classic, where to short this. Okay, here's your rising wedge, right, on your 15-minute, okay, which is a bearish pattern. I know people think it's bullish, but it's not. So you come across, you break here. That was it. That's all you needed. So now you're actually able to put the short on around 18, 18 and a quarter, right? Even if you waited to here, you're able to put the short on, and now you're here. Now the short was really hard to find. It's really hard to find the locate because so many people want to short this. So you just do it through puts. But to me, I don't see any reason why this couldn't trade back down. And frankly, all you're risking is 75 cents. Because if you get through this 1844, you have to realize that you have that potential. So you're going to have to set this as your stop if you short it, or you buy puts on it, depending upon how you trade. Everyone trades differently. So Mara, again, it's trying to do what we want it to do, but we're having a heck of a time, aren't we? So every single time we pull up, they just knock us back down. Pull up, knock us back down. And that's what transpired again here. And that's what we're dealing with. So let's see how that plays out. But just for those that keep asking me about it, and I just want to, and that's one of the reasons why I want to cover it, you need to be careful here. Okay, some of these are acting like they're toppy. And they're starting to act really toppy, like the GDLC collapsing today, this popping, and now I have this little doji at the top, which is signaling uncertainty. So just be aware of that. Plan, this was just textbook. I mean, this is what we were looking for, this level right here, right? Wow. And there you go. I mean, that's just textbook. And opens, huge overgap, and then just collapses. So there's nothing to do here. If you're in this, and this is why I wanted to cover it, if you're in this, if you take out a lower low tomorrow, you're going to need to really consider getting out of it. Because if you break this, the probability is that you'll gap fill. Now, what you can do, if you're looking for other levels, you can just go here on a 15-minute and look at where you were pre and post and see if you can get any other levels. And here's one right here, right, which is what we're showing. There's another here, but there's nothing but air below this. So that lets you know, and that increases the probability that if this goes down, it's going to go down. So keep that in mind. If you don't have any base whatsoever, even pre or post, chances of it dropping are pretty great if it breaks. This was one that I actually looked at and wanted to get involved with today, and I didn't because of how it opened. I didn't like how it opened, and then we ran up, and then we reversed, obviously, and closed at the low. This is an evening star. I mean, it's pretty clear evening star too, right? So if you take out this low tomorrow, 1207, you're probably going back down to this 1140 or here. You have a lot of work to do now with this bar here. I mean, this is just clear. Look how much selling. Like, we can sit there and talk about this all we want, right? And oh, it's a late volume day. Does that look like a late volume day? Or does it look like someone just took any chance they could possibly get to sell as much stock as they possibly could? It looks to me like they tried to sell as much stock as they possibly could. So sometimes this can be a bottom. Usually it's done on a day of fear, and today was not a day of fear. So I'm not so sure that that's signifying a bottom in. Usually when you have like a huge spike like this, it can signify a bottom, but I'm not sure that that's what it's doing. If it was a gap down and then you saw that, I might suggest that, but not with that. So task, it's the same story. Like, there's not really much to say here. You just keep grinding higher. The trade was back. Geez, there's a couple of them. I mean, there was one here, right? So you held this line and then you flipped it, and resistance became what? Support, and then you took off. And then the other break you could have used was here, getting above that red wick, like just filling that all in. Once that transpired, you're gone because you took out the seller. So how do you trade this now? The same way I explained to someone 3 to 4 days ago how to trade it and get in it. You just have to wait and see if you're getting above this level, and then look at a 15-minute chart and look for some kind of pattern recognition. The issue that you're having with this now and chasing this, okay, I do see how your volume is increasing. I would just point that your wicks are getting a little longer, and I know this is somewhat advanced, but longer wicks, see how these are shorter wicks? Shorter, longer. So when that starts to happen, what? That means we're getting closer and closer to a top and possibly uncertainty. And after all the buying dries up, one day of buying drying up with uncertain bars becoming more uncertain should give you pause. So probably not the best thing to chase. Tesla, I just want to cover, we have a position in this in the newsletter at 7:30. I'm really not overly concerned about it being down 30 basis points or 25 basis points, whatever it was down today. I'm looking to try to make, at least 100 points on this. So you're going to have to realize that you're going to have some volatility with it. And if you can't handle volatility, probably not the name to be in. For obvious reasons, the beta of this versus the NASDAQ is extremely high. So keep that in mind. I still like it. I see nothing broken. I expect it to bang around Thursday and Friday on light volume. If some news comes out again that's negative, we have very negative news today, in my opinion, on the stock, and nothing happened. Hardly anything happened. So I just really want to go through two names that I think you should watch tomorrow. Let me just start here. So AMEH, okay, this has an enormous short position. And I've been waiting for this to give us kind of a signal. And it's starting to do it even though you have light volume. Now, what I like about this is I'm trending higher on light volume. So what that could mean is I could actually be seeing people covering their short positions through this and not really want anybody to know. We don't have to worry about earnings, right? But now you've based here and now you're taking out this higher high, which you did today. See this higher high bar right here? And look at this. See how the 8 flipped from, and let me just zoom in on this because this is really important. I know a lot of people use their mobile. And yes, I do get in this kind of detail. See this here and here and here. Now look. Now you flip. And now you're here. And then what did happen? Support, resistance became what? Support, support. Now that's the low. See how that changed? And now look, this was resistance. What is it now? It's flipping. Right? So if this flips and we get through this 50-day, this is going to push. So that's the level you're really looking for. You're really looking for this $79 level. Get through that 50-day, and this has a chance of trying to reclaim this high. And now if you get rid of this, let me just point this out very quickly. There's your wedge line, and you can see where you're at. Now, if you get through that, you're at least lining up to get to 104. I actually think you're going to wind up squeezing and going a lot higher, but this is setting up here. There's a trade here. So definitely keep this one on your radar. And just to overlay a couple things, it never hurts to just kind of look at a couple other leading indicators. So you can kind of look at the RSI and see how it's rounding as well, and that seems to be going exactly as we thought. And it never hurts to look at like volume by price and just see where the volume is, and you can see where your point of control is and your VWAP, you're above both. And if you flip here, this should get you up and get you going. Finally, I just want to go through this trade. I really like the action. I think the action in this has just been absolutely phenomenal, and we're going to cover this. Hold on one second. Let me just get rid of the volume by price because I really don't need it. So we're in this from the newsletter at like 80, 80 and a quarter, it looks like. So I just want to point this out, what it's doing. So here was your first level that you needed to break, and you broke it and you pushed. The next day you came up, you looked like you were going to come down, you formed a hammer. What are these? They are rejection. And then we just push and push and push. Now, what this does for me is this gets me to an all-time high today. So if you look at some of these smaller cap names today, what did you see happen with them? You saw them come in towards the end of the day. That's not what happened here. The exact opposite happened. We saw this push into the end of the day, which is exactly what you're looking for. So if you're not in this yet, I don't think it's too late. We're only up 5% in it. It's only been a couple days, but I do think that there's a trade here. Now, there's a little bit of resistance that you might hit here, but I don't really expect this to last very long. But that would get you to 90. There's another channel here. I don't even want to show you, but this is setting up, and this is setting up for a big move, in my opinion. And if you look at this, this obviously is when, you started in May, but if you look at what's going on here, just flipping above this on the monthly, this is setting up for much higher prices. So keep this in mind. Keep those two in mind for tomorrow. Again, I will link the video on candlesticks on the back end of this. And as always, please subscribe to the channel, click notifications, because we do a lot of live shows, and you want to be notified of those. Have a great evening, everyone.